Hello and welcome again to this edition of FI TV. I'm your host, Brad Swanson. We are coming to you just a few blocks from Florida's capital during the 2022 Florida legislative session. We are joined today by Alix Miller, CEO and President of the Florida Trucking Association. Alix, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
All right, brand new president, relatively. You've been doing the job for how long now?
About 7 months.
7 months, not brand new anymore. And,
No.
and really, we all know who ran the place before. No, we love Ken. He's enjoying his retirement days and whatnot. So now you are on the docket and at the helm, and things have been just easy peasy, right? Nothing big's been going on.
Absolutely nothing has been going on. So I've been at FTA for 4 years now, and what most people don't remember was pre-pandemic, we were coming out of the busiest hurricane season in history for Florida. Mm-hmm. We had 30 named storms. So 30 named storm hurricane season into the pandemic with supply chain crises and the Colonial Pipeline.
Right, okay.
So it's been a relatively easy start.
I mean, just like low bar, easy, just throw out a few press releases. Okay, so let's go back to when you got to the association, you basically modernized all of their communications, their member advocacy. You literally reinvented the way that the trucking community was perceived in the Capitol in your role doing the advocacy and doing the communications. When you think about that time to today, what are you most proud of in that time frame?
Well, I think when I think about our association and all of the adversity that they've been facing, I mean, they have been running 24/7 for more than 3 years now, given any sort of crisis, an emergency, natural disasters. I mean, the perseverance and patriotism from our members is really extraordinary. But then I also am really proud of the level of professionalism. I think there's a really strong stereotype that we are working to change. It is not 1970s rumbling trucks, outlaws on the road. Professional men and women from every level, whether diesel technicians, the truck drivers, the warehouse managers, fleet managers. And so we really are working to get that message out there that it's really a new day for trucking.
Well, I think when you think about, trucking, you go back to the old, stereotypes that you were just speaking to. And today, really the logistics and we'll get to supply chain in its current, challenged format, but supply chain circa 2.5 years ago was the ultimate panacea to delivering goods in the world, and that's really what trucking embodies, is that entire supply chain delivery model, because it's the trucks that pull up to the intermodal logistics centers where they're doing break bulk from the ships that are coming off, and it's really those trucks that are getting at that cross country and the last mile.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the disconnects that I'm working so hard to fix. Everyone loves their stuff, but no one seems to like trucks. And we really need to fix that connection and remind people how vital and essential the industry is, but then how professional these drivers are. It's a high-skill, high-wage career. They're being paid as much as vice presidents of companies, 6 figures with $15,000 signing bonuses. And all of the technology that everyone from the truck driver, warehouse delivery person, the CEOs, the technology has changed so rapidly. Yeah. It doesn't resemble anything of a trucking industry 20 years ago.
Right, and at the center of that is the driver. So we'll get to the driver shortage conversation in just a second, but when I think of the old rigs, and believe it or not, I did drive a straight rig for a minute, but when you look at the modernity inside the new Volvo cabs or the Freightliners, I mean, they are modern. It's like a spaceship inside that thing, from logistics to GPS to understanding driver behavior to monitoring and compliance with the federal requirements of how long a driver can be and can't be behind the wheel. I mean, these drivers today are, technicians, if you will, versus just, wrench turners and somebody that can change a tire. How different are they today?
Oh, they're so different. I mean, if you think about just 5 years ago, drivers were relying on paper logs for all of their shipments. And then electronic logging devices came in, which literally tracks that truck to make sure it's compliant. Right. Other things are the forward-facing and back-facing cameras. The telematics are really remarkable. So a trucking company can watch all of their trucks on all over the country, see where they are, see how long they've been driving. They will be alerted if a driver takes a sharp turn or has a hard braking experience. So it is good for the driver, it keeps them safer, but it really keeps all motorists safer on the road.
Right. Let's talk about Florida for a second. The game board, if you will, that your truck drivers and your trucking companies operate on, and we think about FDOT. In my time there, RFID was being used with the new intrastate permitting. So you bring one truck from another state in, sometimes you have to stop. Now with the new digital permitting and what used to be enforced solely by Florida Highway Patrol, how is FDOT and its forward-leaning technology adoption process, and how are they to work with for you?
Oh, FDOT is a wonderful partner for us. I mean, I think I might talk to them just about once a week. But we are working on some new technology when it comes to our interstate plates or international registration plan plates to make them multi-year, which does require additional technology and work both from DHSMV and FDOT. And so we're really thankful for them to help us out with that.
It's pretty cool. We think about standard freight, we think about the standard freight liners, we think about gear on the beds and how heavy it is. We know under the previous governor during the hurricanes, he suspended weight restrictions and came to work for the industry. How do you find Governor DeSantis to work with in these times of challenges and troubles with the industry to get Florida what it needs in a time of crisis?
Well, I think for good or for bad, Florida is ahead of the curve when it comes to other states because of hurricanes. We have a system in place. These processes are so set, we're so used to them that as soon as there is an issue or some sort of emergency, we all know, all the different stakeholders know exactly what to do at that moment. So we get those permits, those overweight, oversized permits faster. We get the executive orders, emergency orders much faster because we're used to it. And so DeSantis has been wonderful to work with. And really steps up and communicates with us and sees what we need as an industry to help Floridians.
So we'll jump into some fun things, and I love that we're riffing, and I'm throwing a few questions
You are.
Here, but I know your depth of knowledge is fun for the viewers to think about. When we drive down the road and we see a truck stop, but really the Flying J's of the world and the other facilities, and we look at how many spots they have available, we know that's a federal requirement. How good are the partners in those support capacities, those rest areas and truck stops and truck support areas? How are they with working with you and your organization and your members?
Well, those truck stops also happen to be all of our members, so that's pretty helpful for us. But they are really great to work with. The fact is, you mentioned truck parking, that is one of our biggest challenges in the industry. And it was really disappointing in the federal infrastructure package to not see additional funding for it, especially as everyone was sheltering in place, getting their packages at home, staying safe. All of these truck drivers were on the road. But then we turn around and we don't have safe places for them to park.
Right. And let's think about parking. So for everyone that's rolled onto an on-ramp, and we've all seen the sleeper cabs parked along the on-ramp on the shoulder. Now, being a former DOT guy, those roadways and those shoulders aren't necessarily designed to maintain the heavy weight of those trucks. They do for a minute, but that truck parking is so important. And the technology's there. How are you and your members working together to answer that parking challenge? And I know you have some partners like Walmart engaged in that as well.
Oh, absolutely. So not only is it not great for the roads, it's unsafe for everyone. It's unsafe for the drivers, and it's unsafe for people driving past them because obviously it's a hazard on the side of the road. But oftentimes those trucks have absolutely no choice. When their hours of service end, they have to stop. And if the next truck stop is 30 minutes away, that becomes a problem, and they need to sleep and they need to be safe. So we're really working. FDOT has done a lot of comprehensive studies, and we're trying to work with kind of public-private partnerships, really trying to be creative and innovative. And I will say that Florida is brought to other states to show all of the steps that they have taken to mitigate this issue.
All right. So I'm going to jump into another one here that's fun, and it's pre-pandemic. It's logistics craziness, but we think about the organized crime units that, and I've asked you this question before, so I love asking you this. Most people don't know the organized crime will steal these loads of the baskets that are on the backs of these trucks or the trailers, excuse me. What is the industry? What are the law enforcement entities doing to help work with your industry to stop these load thefts, if you will?
Well, Florida Highway Patrol is a big partner with that, particularly when a load is stolen. That is my first call, and that goes out throughout the state. But it's particularly in South Florida, it's a real issue. Cargo theft is a real issue. It's usually linked to organized crime. But when we're looking at the future of trucking, it's particularly concerning because when we're talking about cybersecurity or cyber attacks, ransomware, remember now, all of these trucks are no longer the 1970s trucks.
Right.
They are outfitted with technology. They are connected to the internet at all times. And so we as an industry are really trying to be proactive about protecting these trucks because you can divert them where you want. And and that's a real concern, particularly with what it could be.
Right, the issue.
Right,
for sure. All right, so let's jump into so you become president, right? We're going to come back to this. You become president, and suddenly supply chain issues. Why aren't the truckers driving more trucks? And suddenly you're on national news. Where does the Florida Trucking Association, National Trucking, stand with meeting the needs of the supply chain versus the ships that are offshore? Where is the real bottleneck?
Well, I don't necessarily want to point fingers towards any bottleneck. Obviously, the supply chain is called a chain because of all the links.
The pieces.
So if one of them weakens, we're all going to feel it. One of the examples that I like to give is Hurricane Michael set the lumber industry in Florida back 10 to 15 years. The lumber is used to make the pallets to haul our fruits and vegetables, or even the bottled water that shows up on the grocery store shelves. So there are all these almost disparate, what most people would consider unrelated issues that sometimes can weaken that chain. But I think Florida is doing really well. I mean, we work really well with the ports and the airports and rail, so that we have a really open communication, because obviously there are going to be bottlenecks. There are going to be slowdowns or detention times, and it's really about solving those problems. And I think because Florida is such a consumer state, it's unwieldy, right, compared to other states, particularly for trucking, because there's only two ways in and out, I-95 and I-75. And so when people are wondering why there's congestion, that's most of our materials in Florida are coming from out of state.
All right. So in our final 10 seconds or less, when you want our viewers and legislators to walk away with one thing, when they see that truck on the road, what do you want them to think?
I want them to think that we need to make it easier for Florida trucking companies to do business in Florida. One of the greatest threats that we face is lawsuit abuse. Our CEOs are spending more time in law or courts and law firms and dealing with outrageous settlements, frivolous lawsuits, and nuclear verdicts that are hundreds of millions of dollars right now. And that really places trucking in a precarious position here.
Yeah. Well, we know that no one's doing more for the trucking industry than Alix Miller and your team at the Florida Trucking Association. So we appreciate you spending some time with us on Phi TV to catch us all up on what's going on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for this episode of Phi TV. For more great interviews like this one, make sure you hit us up on our social media feeds. And for now, thanks for tuning in.